Today, we're going to talk about whether collectors are stupid in 2025 for chasing memorabilia cards, for chasing patch cards, for chasing relic cards, whatever you want to call them. Are we dumb in 2025 for wanting these things? Because there's been some commentary in the last few days that sort of indicated that to be true, and I think that's wrong. It doesn't make sense to me, and I want to unpack this a little bit further because I think some of this thought process is consistent across a lot of people within this hobby. I go to shows and I see some of these same trends, and my thought process is, if this is sort of happening, is there a bit of a play there for us to go ahead and buy some of these patch cards for a cheaper price because the rest of the hobby, the rest of the collectors, the rest of the people in this space are sort of sleeping on them? So just bear with me as I unpack my thoughts on that in this video today, because like I said, there's been some commentary made online that I want to dive into because I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, a lot of these conversations kicked off following a topic we spoke about a week ago. It's been all over the internet where people are surprised that some of these cards have fake patches within them. And this is a bit shocking to me, because shocking in the sense that I'm surprised that people are surprised, because this seems to be common knowledge, especially if you go on the internet and type things in on your search engine, that people were basically ripping patches out of these cards and noticing that the name on the back of the patch didn't match the player on the card, which is, a big issue. It's something these manufacturers have been doing for a long time. It's completely unacceptable. But what I found surprising was that people were surprised about this sort of stuff. Now, I think these manufacturers need to do a better job. They need to stop doing that. They need to make sure that these relics match, especially on the back of the card, if it says it's player worn or match worn or event, worn or associated. But what I sort of spoke about in this video is that the back of the card, when these are sort of happening where the name doesn't match the relic or the player, the back of the card basically tells you that, right? And my whole point was people need to pay attention to what they're buying in 2025. You can't keep pleading ignorance when it comes to this sort of stuff. So anyway, I digress. That sort of kicked off a bunch of different conversations, including, Jeremy Lee's Sports Card Live, in particular when Cage Lawyer came on, because this conversation came up. And what was pretty interesting was that some of the people in the chat were commenting around the fact they didn't really care whether or not the relics matched the player or not. They didn't really care about whether or not these things were event worn or player associated anymore, because they see these things as being so watered down that they're completely irrelevant and people are not buying these products to get these patches or these relics in the first place. Obviously, that doesn't hold true for things like Flawless, NT, Eminence, Dynasty, because people want those hits in those sets, because that's what you go ahead and buy it for, because it's match worn, player associated. It's that higher elite set. But for the run-of-the-mill stuff, it's not really relevant. And they're sort of just seen as goodies that these manufacturers chuck into these products to sort of fill them out, to give breakers more hits to sort of lose their minds over. But my thoughts jumped when that conversation was happening to, okay, what does this actually mean for other sets? Because if people are becoming so accustomed to these things being watered down, are they, actually sleeping on them, especially ones that are match worn? Because the conversation, some of the things I read online when people were posting about this on Instagram and the like, they were sort of talking about, all relics. And I know, I think I mentioned a bit earlier that the match worn stuff was still mentioned as being somewhat worth chasing, but this stuff has been watered down so much that people were talking about relics as if they were insignificant, right? And my logic is I don't think that's true, because if you've still got sets that have match worn stuff in it, and if it's a relic card only with no autograph, right? People were talking as if those things, are not things that collectors actually want. But me being a fan, right? I've talked about this before. I've shown these cards in the video that I referenced a bit earlier. I showed these cards in that video. Like, this stuff is match worn. That takes collecting to the next level for me. Now, obviously these things are, patch autos. So they're sought after for that reason. They're also from Flawless, the only year for soccer. So it has all these additional layers for why people want them. But if they weren't from Flawless, I'd still be buying it, because me being a fan of those players, of those teams, can have a greater connection to that card, because I can sit back and say, well, that's from this season. Did that player wear it in the championship winning season? Did they wear it in this match? Which match did they wear it in? Did they score a goal when they were wearing it? Did they have a good season? Like, all those things take collecting to another level for me, because it's like, it's even cooler, right? We buy cards in the first place because we like those teams, we like those players. So in my mind, relics take that to the next level. But the commentary online sort of seemed to indicate that wasn't the case. And, going to shows and I see how some of these, relic only cards sell, they don't really sell too well. Now, I can understand, player associated stuff is crap. I've got some of that in my collection. I still actively buy it. But I can understand why people maybe don't chase those. But because this trend has sort of come in where it's, now just, Dick's Sporting Goods stuff chucked in these cards that they've bought off the shelf, or the relics don't even match the player anymore, people seem to be completely turned off to them in general. And maybe I'm sort of off base by saying that, because I don't think it's that big of a problem. But my question to you is, do you chase these things yourself? And if you're not chasing them, why are you not chasing them? Is it because of those things that I just mentioned? When people are sitting online saying they don't want to go ahead and buy them, I'm like, why? You know, you look at some of these older sets like First Year Exquisite, that stuff is worth a lot of money now because, you know, they're match-worn things. They're tied to some of the greatest players of all time. So why would you not want that over anything else? And I should also add, some of the commentary was also talking about the fact that people preferred base parallels over, you know, match-worn relics, like relic-only cards. And that thought process doesn't make sense to me. I know that's been a trend that's happened for quite some time, in particular where, you know, some low-numbered autographs that are on card sometimes sell for less than, you know, base parallels at a Prism. But that line of thinking has never made sense to me. When I've sort of sat back at sort of how the hobbies approach things, it's been always really weird to me because I chase autographs, I chase relics for that reason. I sit back and think, well, I want to own these things for those reasons, right? It takes collecting, takes being a fan, takes being a season ticket holder of that team, of that player to another level. So I would rather have something the player themselves has touched versus some random card that Panini's printed to death every single year now and will continue to do so until they lose their licenses. It's like that thought process is weird. I don't understand why people can sort of sit back and choose a base parallel over an autograph, choose a base parallel over a relic only, choose a base parallel over a patch auto. And it does happen. If you look at the valuations of some of these sets too, when you look at things like NT versus Flawless, especially with rookie cards, like NT's seen as the true RPA, but they're not match worn. Whereas the match worn stuff has been in Flawless for a rookie. So if you're chasing a rookie card, why is Flawless not seen as a true rookie? And I don't, you know, recall how the hobby comes up with all these rules, but this stuff has happened for quite some time. And to sort of go to my train of thought a little bit earlier, I know this video is going on a bit of a tangent, but you sort of see it as well with like rookie cards. Like I've never been a huge fan of rookie cards in general. Like if I could have, you know, a Michael Jordan exquisite card patch auto over a signed rookie, I'd be choosing the patch auto because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. But, you know, all the time when you see examples like that, the rookie cards sell for a lot more. And obviously older rookie cards make a lot more sense because, you know, volumes, print runs, etc. are much lower. They didn't last the test of time. Today, you know, that doesn't really work because these things are printed to death. Every set has 100 million rookies in it. So even more reason to chase the stuff that's a little bit more narrow, a bit more scarce, a bit more rare, i.e. match one stuff, the autograph stuff. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below because this whole thing has just left me scratching my head a little bit. It was good to sort of see the debate go on Sports Card Live. I would have liked to have been a part of it, to be perfectly honest, because I think Jeremy was talking about the fact that he doesn't like the fact that they've got these crappy patches in them, but nobody else seemed to care as much as what he did. It's like, guys, don't even put them in the product because who wants them? And it's interesting because it seems to be watering down the demand in the hobby because people now are so turned off to them. So for me as a collector of these things, I think it's great because I can go ahead and chase the things that I want and it's not as competitive as maybe what it should be. But what does that actually mean long term? Am I an idiot? Are we dumb in 2025 for chasing these things, for chasing relics? And again, I should clarify, the conversation was specifically on non-match one stuff, non-game use stuff. But like I said, there are some trends. The commentary towards, you know, match one stuff is being impacted by this because some of these things don't sell for as much as what you think they should, in particular in comparison to, you know, traditional parallels and the like, base parallels, etc. Are we dumb in 2025 for not chasing this thing? Or are we dumb in 2025 for trying to break away from the norm to chase these things? Because the modern hobby, the modern flippers, the modern people that are going ahead and discounting this sort of stuff are setting the new standards, setting the new rules. So in 40, 50 years time, these things aren't going to be sought after because, you know, the trends have changed. I don't think that to be the case. I think match one stuff is going to be relevant long term, like we've seen historically. But who knows? Maybe we're dumb. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. This obviously turned into a slightly different conversation than what I think I introed at the start. I just went on a ramble, as I do always say. I think about these videos before I go ahead and record them, but you know, I don't really have a script or anything. I just talk off the cuff, which is why I probably sound like an idiot sometimes, or most of the time, depending on whether or not you like me. So anyway, share your thoughts down below. Let me know whether or not you want to chase relic cards, whether you think I'm wrong, whether you think I'm an idiot, whether you think collectors are dumb for chasing these things, whether or not you like the fact that you have non-player associated stuff. Like to sort of go on another mini tangent now, my thought process is if they're not player associated, if they're not tied to a game or event, don't put them in the product at all. Like don't have these fake hits in there. It's just stupid. Because you go to any card show and you see dollar bins, you see 10-cent bins filled with this shit. People don't want them. So why are they there? So yeah, it's just a mess. And the other thing to sort of flag, as I did say in my last video, is these companies have sort of charged us an arm and a leg, right, in the past to have match one stuff in them. They've justified it by saying, you know, we have to buy these relics. They're expensive. We've got to go to auction to get them, to put them into the cards, to cut them up, all the processing, all that kind of crap. They're now charging us more but they're no longer putting match-worn stuff in there. So it's like, guys, you've reduced your overhead significantly, but you're charging us through the bloody roof and giving us a far inferior product. So anyway, that's the kind of shit that needs to be fixed in this space, but that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, I've rambled today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.